This is the Mets Postcast, your instant game reaction for the New York Mets. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Despite almost a full-blown meltdown in the ninth inning, the Mets were able to hold on to defeat the Philadelphia Phillies in the first game of this series by a final score of 5-4. Welcome in to the Mets Postcast here on the Locked On Mets YouTube channel and on the Locked On Mets podcast feed. I am your Postcast host, Chris Schubert, and if I seem flustered, because I'm still trying to figure out what happened there in the ninth inning of a game that the Mets were in control of basically from the word go. We'll talk about what Francisco Lindor did in this game, but still reeling over the Mets only winning this game by one run, but doesn't matter as long as you win the baseball game. The Mets have now won 5 in a row, 10-1 at home this season as they push their record to 16-7. And, you know, we'll call a little bit of an audible here on the program because it wasn't what I thought we would be talking about.
This is what you'll be talking about.
What happened in the ninth inning? The game was flying by, cruising. We're going to talk about Francisco Lindor and his 2 home runs, throwing it back to October against the Philadelphia Phillies. A nice performance from Tylor Megill. And all of a sudden, Max Kranick, who has been nothing but great this season. I know he had a rough outing in Minnesota during the most recent road trip that the Mets had, but he'd been doing really well out there. Just all of a sudden lost it. And I wrote in my notes that I hated that Edwin Diaz even needed to get up and warm up in this game, even though I didn't know if he was going to come into the game. And then they needed to use him in the game. And it gives up the 3 home run to Bryson Stott. And now all of a sudden this game is close. And there's a lot of people asking why keep Kranick in if he didn't need that inning. Listen, Carlos Mendoza has a bullpen right now that is being taxed on a regular basis. We were going to talk about this when we talked about Tylor Megill, but I guess I'll fast forward it and we'll do it here. Tylor Megill only gave the Mets 5 1/3 tonight. And so with night after night, you not getting that length from your starting rotation consistently enough, you got to use your bullpen. They have 2 more games in this series. Mendoza is thinking about, tomorrow and thinking about Wednesday. And knowing that he has an off day on Thursday, trying to kind of maneuver his bullpen, really wanted to get 3 innings out of Kranick so that he didn't have to use Minter, he didn't have to use Diaz, and it frees him up the next 2 days to have both of those guys available. It didn't work, right? It didn't work tonight for Carlos Mendoza because he then had to burn his reliever. Edwin Diaz is not available tomorrow. Jonathan says we need to talk about Diaz. Yeah, it wasn't great, but I don't know if he's thinking that he's going to come into that game when it's 5-0. It kind of happened in the blink of an eye. It happened very, very, very quickly. And it kind of went south on the Mets. Now, luckily, they got the win, so it's not that big of a deal. They've won 5 in a row. They've gained a game. They're now 3 games up in the National League East, so everything's still good. But just a weird way for this game to end when the Mets were in cruise control, basically from the word go. First batter of the game for the New York Mets, Lindor hits for the second straight day a leadoff home run, and they're in control up until that in the ninth inning. So Carlos Mendoza, I don't want to say getting a little too cute, but really trying to make sure that he keeps his bullpen nice and fresh for tomorrow and for Thursday. Put himself in a little bit of a spot where he probably stayed with Kranick a little bit too soon, and then he had to go to Diaz, and Diaz clearly wasn't ready to go. Didn't walk anybody, threw strikes, but just made a mistake to Bryson Stott, who for the second time has hit a home run off of Edwin Diaz. But okay, let's reset. The New York Mets won the baseball game. Francisco Lindor hit 2 home runs. The Mets have a 3-game lead in the National League East. They have won 5 in a row. Things are good despite the scare that we got in the ninth inning of this game tonight. And let's talk about it because Francisco Lindor threw it back like it was October 2024. Picked up against the Phillies right where he left off. The last time we saw these 2 teams meet, it was the NLDS, and we saw Francisco Lindor hit a grand slam heard around the world, the grand slam that put the Mets in the NLCS. And it doesn't matter that it's April. Francisco Lindor is hot, hot, hot right now, and he continues to be hot against the Phillies. 2 home runs, including what is clearly the game-winning home run now, the 3-run homer he hit in the bottom of the 7th. I had some numbers prepared. I'll share them with you now. Because Francisco Lindor, after his night tonight, is hitting .284 with a .340 on-base percentage, a .500 slugging percentage, and a 134 WRC plus. He has 5 home runs and 13 RBIs so far in 2025. And I pulled his numbers from March and April for the last 4 years, his first 4 seasons in New York. So remember those numbers that I just gave to you, a 284 average, the 5 home runs and the 13 RBIs for Francisco Lindor so far through March and April. In 2021, his first year here, he hit 182 with 1 home run and 3 RBIs. In 2022, he hit 282 with 4 home runs and 14 RBI. In 2023, it was a 218 average, 4 homers, 21 runs batted in. And then last year, he hit 197, 5 homers, 11 RBI. So in terms of RBI, the third best season we've seen from him, March and April. Batting average-wise, the best, the 284. The 5 home runs ties what he did last year. This is, I have no problem saying it, the best start that Francisco Lindor has had to a season in a New York Mets uniform. And you'd have to think it's going a long way to put the Mets in a position where they're 16-7 and they've just won 5 in a row. He has been a totally different player than those numbers that I just gave to you. The best average in March and April of any of the 5 seasons, tied for the most home runs, and he's got some chances to make up that RBI number to get closer to the 21 RBI that he had in 2023. Francisco Lindor is acting like the MVP that we saw last year, the guy that we saw in the postseason, the guy that we know normally comes around June-ish. He's showing up in April. That's bad news for the rest of baseball. It's bad news for the Philadelphia Phillies. It is great news for all of us. He is, with Juan Soto struggling, we'll put the air quotes around it, with him not playing up to his standard, we'll say, Pete Alonso being the offense for most of the season, it is really, really good to see Francisco Lindor have the success that he is having. A 2-home run night, leading off the game with a home run for the second straight timeout. Just absolutely incredible. And shout out to Tyrone Taylor, because that at-bat doesn't happen in the 8th inning, the 7th inning, to put the Mets up 5-0 if he doesn't beat out an infield grounder to get out of a double play to allow Lindor to step up there in the bottom of the 7th and hit that home run to make it 5-0. But Francisco Lindor, the story, 2 home runs, back-to-back days with leadoff home runs, and he has just been awesome for the New York Mets as of late. The starting pitcher tonight, somebody that we need to discuss because he was excellent once again. And I have a number that I want to share with all of you because something happened tonight that hadn't happened much this season for the New York Mets. So we'll talk about that as well here on the other side. You ever check your bank account and wonder, where did all my money go? Well, between dining out, online shopping, and entertainment, it's easy to lose track. That's where Monarch Money comes in. Think of it as your personal CFO, giving you full visibility and control over your finances. Monarch Money isn't just a budgeting app. It is a complete financial command center. You can track all your accounts, your investments, and spending all in one place. So you stop just managing your money and start building wealth. Instead of juggling multiple apps, you can use Monarch to check your finances, track your spending. You can even plan long-term goals. Maybe you're working with a partner, significant other, easy collaboration. Managing money with your partner is smoother than ever. You can track shared and personal accounts, set goals, and stay on the same page without the stress. How about you take control of your finances today with Monarch Money? Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com for 50% off your first year. That's monarchmoney.com, code LOCKEDONMLB for half off your first year. Need to catch my breath here on the Mets Postcast on the Locked On Mets YouTube channel and the Locked On Mets podcast feed, because this was free. I thought this was going to be free and easy. We were going to talk about how great Francisco Lindor is, how awesome Tylor Megill was. I thought that was going to be our focus, and instead the craziness of the 9th inning. But at the end of the day, it is a win for the New York Mets, and you don't care what ultimately happens in the game as long as it ends up with a victory, and that's exactly what happened tonight for the New York Mets. It was Tylor Megill on the mound for New York, 5 1/3, only allowed 1 hit, walked 4, 10 strikeouts, tying a career high. His season ERA down to 1.09. I believe with tonight's start, that puts him 4th amongst National League pitchers in ERA. He has been excellent to start this season. The one criticism, the one thing that Tylor Megill has to get better at is the length. The 4 walks absolutely crushed him tonight. He had multiple innings where he threw over 20 pitches. I at one point wrote down, I think it was in the 3rd inning. Let me check my notes here. Yeah. The 3rd inning, I wrote, this is the Tylor Megill experience in a nutshell. He's cruising along. You see how great the stuff is. He's getting the nasty swing and miss with everything, but yet the command kind of evades him. Walks, a hit here and there, and now innings balloon, and he has a 20, 25, 30 pitch inning, and it stops him from being able to go 5, 6, 7 innings and give the Mets the length. Now, I'll take what Tylor Megill did any day of the week, but you look at what Aaron Nola provided the Phillies on the other side, 6 1/3. He did allow the 4 earned runs, but was through the first 6 innings had only allowed, 2 earned runs at that point through 101 pitches. That's the kind of length we want to see from Tylor Megill. Long after Megill was out of this game, Nola was still out there throwing it for the Philadelphia Phillies. That's the one thing that's missing from Megill. He is so close to reaching a tier of pitcher in the National League where he gets talked about as one of the best. He just has to limit those sideways innings. And tonight, it was self-inflicted. It's the command going sideways. It's the 4 walks that stop him from having a 6, 7, even 8 inning performance. Guy had 10 strikeouts in 5 innings, was cruising, was making Trey Turner look silly, making Schwarber, Harper, making the meat of this Phillies lineup look silly. And yet, at the end of the day, it's 5 1/3 innings pitched. That at some point is going to come back to haunt the New York Mets if they constantly have to go to their bullpen. I'm not saying this is what happened tonight, but you've been using Max Kranick a lot so far this season. You've been relying on this excellent bullpen. Don't get me wrong. They have been absolutely outstanding, and they have been a key to this team being 16-7. But you just worry about asking them to do too much. The easiest place to lessen the workload on those relievers, how about you get some length from your starter? Can we get some more 7-inning outings like we've seen from Kodai Senga? Even the 6-inning outing that he had the last time out. You give 6, 7 innings regularly, and they don't have to be 6 or 7 scoreless. You give me 6 or 7, 3 runs or fewer, the Mets are going to have a chance. With Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, Juan Soto when he turns a corner. I mean, this offense, McNeil's coming back. They're going to get Alvarez back. This offense is going to be able to score more than they have been producing so far this season. You just need a little bit more length from the starters, just a little bit. You're basically right here on the margins, but you're at 5 1/3 right now in this start tonight. And if you can get to 6 and 7 regularly, not only is that going to help the Mets and their bullpen, it's going to put Tylor Megill in a conversation on the national scene as one of the best pitchers in all of baseball, because that's how good this stuff is. It just kind of goes sideways for him, and it's only a couple of innings. His first inning was 20-plus pitches, and then that third inning, he was at 62 pitches after the third inning. It was just hard to see, even at that point, a pathway for him to get through 6 or 7 innings. Now, luckily, he had a really quick fourth that even allowed us to get him into the 6th. But that's just something to keep an eye on here moving forward. Want to talk about the DH position for the New York Mets. They had Winker in there tonight. He was 2 for 3 with a home run and that RBI. But so far this season, the story for the New York Mets is they're not getting a ton from their DH. Entering tonight through their first 22 games, a 177, 256, 329 slash line. That's good only for a 68 WRC plus and 1 home run and 12 RBI. So they're not getting a ton from the DH position. They got 2 hits from Winker tonight. They got the home run. That's only their 2nd home run from their DH this season. So going to need to see some more production from that spot in the lineup. The player of the game, you know who the player of the game is. It's Francisco Lindor, hitting 2 home runs, up to 5 on the season. And real quick, just to close on this, I wanted to open with it, but then the 9th inning just went sideways on all of us. Didn't tonight feel a little different? Didn't tonight, even though it was a regular season game on April 21st, didn't it feel like there was just a little more juice because of what happened in the NLDS, because of how good these two teams are, because it was a matchup of 1 and 2? And maybe I'm just speaking for myself. You guys can tell me if you agree, but it felt different because you feel like the Mets are ready to compete on this stage, and not just ready to compete on this stage for 2025, but they're ready to compete on this stage for the long term. That these series against these NL East foes, against the Phillies, against the Braves, because don't worry, that team's not going anywhere. We're going to have some battles with them, and we're going to hopefully get some revenge at some point against that team this season. But it just feels like these series matter because it's your division rival, but because of how good this Mets team is, how stable this organization is, it just turns these divisional matchups up another octave. And I felt it tonight. You can feel it in that Citi Field crowd. And by the way, shout out to the Citi Field crowds the last couple of days. They have been nothing short of excellent. I mean, they've just been awesome to see, engaged. That home run that Lindor hit to make it 5-0. It was close. I don't want to say it rivaled it, but it was close to that feeling when Lindor hit the grand slam in the NLDS. And so you just love series like this, and you love when the New York Mets, our team, are in it, right? They are ready for the fight. I put in the thumbnail that this was round 1 Round one goes to New York. Round one goes to the Mets, and you feel like they are going to have a chance every single round of the 13 times that they'll play the Phillies this season. So the Mets, it's got scary there in the ninth inning, but they hold on to win 5-4. They certainly kind of mess with their plans for tomorrow. Don't anticipate having Edwin Diaz. So Carlos Mendoza going to have to manage his bullpen here over the next 2 days very, very carefully. So we'll see what he's able to do with that. But the Mets win 5-4 over the Philadelphia Phillies. They have won 5 games in a row. They will now go for the series win tomorrow, and they will have Griffin Canning on the mound in order to do so. But that's going to do it for us here on the Mets Postcast. If you're new here, subscribe, turn on that notification bell. We really do appreciate it. And join us after each and every Mets game throughout the course of the season. I'll be back tomorrow to recap everything that goes on in the second game of this series. A wild one for New York. They hold on in the ninth inning. Francisco Lindor throws it back to October with 2 home runs, and the Mets have won 5 in a row. And I believe if the chat tells me correctly, tied for the best record in baseball, 3-way tie for the best record in baseball. It's fun to be a Mets fan right now. We'll talk to you later, everybody.